Life is not a garden, it is a battlefield. Each day we face unexpected attacks, loss, betrayal, failure, and the silent wars within our own minds. If you wish to rebuild yourself, you cannot live driven by blind emotion. You must learn to think like a ruthless strategist, calm, clear, and unwavering, even when everything falls apart. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, once wrote in his Meditations, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He didn't write those words from a throne of comfort, but in the midst of war, illness, and grief. Marcus was not emotionless. He was a warrior of the mind, one who understood that emotions are waves, but reason is the steady ship that carries us through the storm. If you have collapsed today, remember this. You can rebuild yourself with the steel mind of a Stoic strategist like Marcus Aurelius, like a warrior who does not yield to life but rises with reason as his weapon. One, see life as a chessboard, not as a see life as a chessboard, not as a storm. Life often feels like a storm, unpredictable, violent, and merciless in its timing. One moment you're standing under clear skies, the next the winds of change rip the ground from beneath your feet. For most people, when life crashes in like this, they react in kind, emotionally, impulsively, and often destructively. They scream into the wind. They panic. They grasp for comfort or control. But the Stoic warrior, the ruthless strategist, does not see a storm. He sees a chessboard. This is not because life is orderly or fair. It is not because fate spares him its chaos. On the contrary, the strategist stands in the same weather as everyone else. The difference is in his mind. While others are tossed around by fear and despair, the strategist sets down his pieces, studies the board, and begins to plan his next move. This mindset doesn't come naturally, it is cultivated. The ordinary mind is wired to protect itself, to survive, to react, to seek comfort. But the strategist is trained to pause, to observe, and to think several steps ahead. When hardship strikes, he does not ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Instead, he calmly inquires, "What is my next move?" It's not about having all the answers, it's about having the discipline to look for them deliberately, not desperately. The Stoics understood this. They knew that while we cannot control all that happens to us, we can control how we perceive it. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most revered Stoic philosophers and emperor of Rome, once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." This insight is not only profound, it's strategic. The Stoic teaches us that events are neutral. It is our judgment that gives them power over us. A job loss is not a tragedy. A betrayal is not the end of trust. A setback is not failure. These are all moves in a larger game, and the meaning we assign to them determines whether we spiral into panic or rise with purpose. Imagine this. Two people lose their jobs on the same day. The first collapses under the weight of fear. They focus only on what was taken from them, drowning in resentment, blaming the economy, their boss, and fate itself. Helplessness drags them into a spiral of anxiety with no way out. The second, the strategist, feels the same shock but responds entirely differently. He does not allow himself to remain in pain for long. He observes the situation with clarity. He asks, "Which of my skills have grown dull? What new doors might be opening now that this one has closed?" Not to escape emotion, but to rise above Emotion with reason. He opens his notebook and rewrites his goals. He studies the market, reassessing his position like a general surveying the battlefield after a defeat. This is not coldness. It is courage sharpened by logic. This is the path of one who lives by Stoic philosophy, unbroken by circumstance, rising from the ruins with the mindset of a rational warrior. To see life as a chessboard is not to deny emotion, but to master it. The ruthless strategist is not unfailing. He is unshaken. He does not banish grief or frustration, but he contains them within a higher aim. Emotions to him are not dictators, but advisors. They inform his perspective, but they do not steer his decisions. This capacity to step back to assess rather than react is central to both strategic thinking and Stoic discipline. The Stoic warrior is not content to be a victim of fate. He becomes its student. He sees patterns in chaos, possibilities in collapse. Where others see disaster, he sees decisions. This is the mindset of Epictetus, who taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." When a storm threatens to consume his life, the Stoic strategist does not try to stop the storm. He finds shelter in his principles and then plans the path forward one square at a time. This metaphor, the chessboard, holds another essential lesson. Not every piece can be saved. Not every plan can be preserved. Strategy often involves sacrifice. A pawn may be lost. A rook may fall. But if the player maintains clarity, the game is still his to win. Likewise, in life, we must sometimes let go of comfort, pride, or even relationships that no longer serve our growth. The ruthless strategist does not cling to what was. He calculates what is necessary now. This is not cruelty, it is clarity. The storm-rained person acts from desperation, trying to hold on to everything at once and thus loses EV and more. The strategist, grounded in Stoic realism, recognizes that some losses are inevitable. What matters is not preservation, but progress. And progress in this context is not measured in immediate success. It is measured in the ability to choose your next move with intention. It is about building resilience, not just recovering from hardship, but reorganizing your life on stronger foundations. Every misfortune is a test of vision. Can you still see the board beneath the broken pieces? Can you still think 3 moves ahead, even when your world feels like it's falling apart? This is where Stoicism becomes not just philosophy, but power. Because when you no longer see life as a storm, when you no longer mistake temporary turbulence for total ruin, you reclaim your ability to act. You become dangerous to despair. You become unshakable. You become, in the truest sense, a strategist of your own becoming. In the end, the mind of a ruthless strategist is not obsessed with control. It is anchored in choice. Storms will come. People will betray you. Plans will fail. But the board remains. And you, as long as breath remains in your body, are still a player. Your hand may tremble, but your move is still yours to make. So rebuild yourself, not in the image of someone who wishes the storm away, but as one who has trained their mind to move through it decisively, bravely, with the patience of a master and the heart of a warrior. Because the world will not hand you peace, it will hand you pieces. It is up to you to make a strategy out of them. Eliminate self-pity, the number one enemy. 2. Eliminate self-pity, the number one enemy. Self-pity is the silent poison that seeps into the soul, dulling the spirit and eroding the will. It is a temptation that whispers in moments of difficulty. Poor me, why has life treated me so unfairly? But the truth is harsh and undeniable. This lament is the language of the defeated. To indulge in self-pity is to surrender the battlefield before the first blow has even landed. A ruthless strategist, the kind of mind capable of rebuilding itself and shaping destiny, does not waste time cursing fate or embracing the identity of a victim. Instead, such a mind regards every challenge as material to be forged into strength. The Stoics understood this well. They recognized that life by its very nature is unpredictable, merciless, and indifferent to human expectation. To demand fairness from existence is like demanding the storm to soften or the winter to grow warm. Nature simply is the only battlefield where justice, strength, and choice exist, lies within our own minds. Epictetus, born into slavery, endured humiliation and pain that most would crumble under. Yet he did not wrap himself in the robe of a victim. He chose instead to see hardship as the ultimate training ground. His chains were not the prison self-pity would have been the real prison, and he refused to enter it. The greatest enemy, therefore, is not poverty, not injury, not the betrayal of others, but the subtle seduction of self-pity. For once the mind accepts the narrative of being wronged, it abandons the responsibility to fight, adapt, and grow. It is far easier to point outward, to blame society, family, or fate, than to face the unflinching truth that our response is always within our control. Self-pity convinces us that we are powerless. The Stoic warrior, however, refuses this delusion. He insists on power over himself even when the world strips away everything else. Epictetus once declared, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This single line, simple yet profound, exposes the emptiness of self-pity. Events themselves are neutral, neither blessings nor curses until filtered through the lens of perception. To wallow in misery is not a natural response. It is a choice. To endure, to rise, to transform misfortune into fuel, that too is a choice. The ruthless strategist, like the Stoic sage, understands that the reaction is everything. Where others see chains, he sees the sharpening stone of character. Where others collapse under injury, he discovers an invitation to cultivate resilience. The world does not ask what you have suffered. It will remember only how you stood in the face of suffering. Consider the example of an athlete who suffers a devastating injury. The first instinct might be despair. The body is broken, the dream shattered, the path to glory interrupted. Many would curse fate, fall into bitterness, and allow months of recovery to drown in hopelessness. Yet, there exists another path, the Stoic path, the strategist's path. That athlete might decide to use the silence of recovery to train the mind, to strengthen what has not been injured, the will, the intellect, the inner discipline. Instead of lamenting what cannot be done, they can turn to books to study, to master new techniques, to reflect on life's deeper lessons. When the body heals, they emerge not merely as an athlete restored, but as a warrior tempered by adversity, equipped with weapons far beyond the physical. This is the essence of eliminating self-pity, transforming what seems like loss into victory, making every trial a source of hidden wealth. For self-pity blinds us to opportunity, while courage uncovers it. Where the victim cries, "Why me?" the strategist demands, "What now?" That shift in language is the pivot upon which lives are rebuilt. Moreover, self-pity is contagious. It spreads to those around us, shaping the atmosphere of our homes, our teams, our communities. A single voice of complaint can infect the spirit of an entire group, draining energy, breeding resentment, and magnifying despair. On the contrary, one individual who rejects self-pity and stands firm in adversity can inspire countless others to rise as well. This is why the Stoic warrior has a duty not only to himself, but also to those who look to him. To abandon the role of the victim is to become a beacon of strength in a world that often prefers the comfort of excuses. The modern world, though far removed from the Roman Empire or the slave markets where Epictetus once stood, is saturated with subtle invitations to self-pity. Social media amplifies comparison, making it easy to see others' victories and feel cheated of our own. The culture of complaint promises sympathy and validation for grievances, but rarely offers solutions. Yet sympathy without transformation is dangerous. It rewards weakness and imprisons us further in the role of the wronged. To reject self-pity today requires the same steel as it did 2,000 years ago. It demands the courage to turn away from the chorus of complaints and to embrace instead the silent, solitary work of rebuilding the mind. The ruthless strategist knows that energy is precious. Every moment wasted in self-pity is a moment stolen from preparation, from growth, from execution. The warrior's question is not, "Who hurt me?" but "How can I sharpen myself through this?" The strategist views setbacks not as proof of injustice, but as opportunities to study the terrain, to gather intelligence, to strike with greater force when the time is right. This mindset is merciless only toward weakness within the tendency to collapse, to complain, to give away power. Thus, eliminating self-pity is not an act of cruelty toward oneself, but of profound respect. It is the recognition that the soul deserves better than to be shackled by complaints. It deserves freedom, and freedom comes through responsibility. The Stoic warrior does not deny pain or pretend that wounds do not exist. Instead, he honors the pain by transforming it into discipline, vision, and strength. In the end, the call to eliminate self-pity is the call to reclaim sovereignty over the self. Life will wound you. This is inevitable. It will strip you of illusions, betray your expectations, and confront you with suffering. But in every blow lies the chance to decide. Will you be the victim who clings to pity, or the warrior who stands unbroken? Epictetus chose the latter. The athlete who rebuilds his mind in recovery chooses the latter. And you, standing at the crossroads of despair and determination, must also choose. The number one enemy is not the world outside, but the weakness within. Self-pity is that weakness. Defeat it, and you walk the way of the Stoic warrior, the way of unyielding strength, of ruthless clarity, of a life rebuilt not upon complaints, but upon courage. 3. Forge yourself into a sharp weapon. To forget oneself into a sharp weapon is not a poetic phrase meant to decorate speeches. It is a call to transform the raw metal of one's life into a blade that cuts through chaos, weakness, and despair. The image of the weapon is not about violence or destruction, but about clarity, precision, and readiness. A strategist who wishes to master life cannot afford to wait for fortune's kindness or for destiny to hand over favorable circumstances. He must take the furnace of hardship, the hammer of discipline, and the anvil of self-reflection, and through these strike himself into form. The strategist knows that to hesitate is to surrender to chance, and to remain dull is to be broken by the first blow of reality. Therefore, he embraces the task of forging, of heat and pressure, until he becomes a weapon fit to endure and to conquer. Seneca, writing to his young friend Lucilius, advised that one should rehearse poverty, should deliberately walk into discomfort, so that when genuine hardship arrives, one will not tremble in terror. The lesson is not masochism, it is mastery. To strip away luxuries is to discover that the human being is far stronger than the cage of comfort allows. When you deny yourself excess, you do not lose richness. You rediscover it. You taste the iron of your own will. A strategist who practices such self-restraint wields a kind of power that cannot be bought or bargained for, because it rests not in possessions, but in command of the self. Imagine the ordinary man who drowns in indulgence. His evenings are consumed by endless entertainment, each hour paid for by coins that could have purchased his freedom. He does not notice the subtle chains tightening around him, chains forged from debts, addictions, and restless cravings. Contrast him with the one who chooses minimalism, who says, "For 1 month I will live with the bare essentials. I will eat simply. I will avoid unnecessary expenses. I will strip away distractions." What emerges from this voluntary discipline is not merely financial clarity, but the discovery of resilience. He realizes that he can endure discomfort without breaking, that his worth is not measured by possessions, and that freedom does not arrive when wealth increases, but when dependence on wealth diminishes. This man begins to resemble a sharpened blade, lean, direct, and unyielding. The forging process is never gentle. To take metal from raw ore into a sword requires fire that would melt lesser materials. Likewise, the strategist accepts that true self-transformation will demand trial. He rises before comfort would allow, training the body until sweat becomes his teacher. He studies not when he feels inspired, but when duty calls him to expand his mind. He restrains himself not because temptation has disappeared, but because he has chosen to master it. Each act of discipline is a hammer's strike. Each denial of excess a blow that shapes the edge. In time, the once ordinary mass of desires and distractions becomes honed into something capable of piercing through confusion. The Stoic warrior does not despise pleasure, but he refuses to become its slave. He can enjoy a fine meal, yet he is equally at peace with bread and water. He can walk in elegant halls, yet he is unshaken by sleeping under the open sky. This adaptability is not weakness, but supreme strength. For fortune cannot intimidate the man who has rehearsed both abundance and poverty. Seneca's call to practice hardship is precisely the training that ensures stability. To live richly without fear is only possible if one has already proven to oneself that survival does not depend on riches at all. Thus, the strategist sharpens not only his body and intellect, but also his soul, until no loss can shatter him and no gift can corrupt him. There is a profound freedom in knowing that your identity is not bound to circumstance. When the marketplace collapses, when the world trembles with uncertainty, the unprepared stumble in fear, but the forged strategist remains calm. He has already lived with little, therefore he cannot be threatened with scarcity. He has already disciplined his body, therefore he cannot be broken by fatigue. He has already disciplined his mind, therefore he cannot be deceived by panic. His strength is not borrowed from external sources but generated within. That is the essence of forging. To carry within yourself the fire that cannot be extinguished by the winds of fate. Forging oneself into a sharp weapon is also an act of responsibility. A strategist who dulls his blade in laziness is not merely betraying himself, but all those who might have depended on his strength. When a family collapses because its guardian lacked discipline, when a community falters because its leaders surrendered to comfort, the consequences are felt by many. The Stoic warrior remembers that his preparation is not only for himself, but for the greater battles of life, to support, to guide, to protect. His sharpened edge becomes a shield for others. His disciplined will a source of stability in a wavering world. Yet forging is not a one-time act. The blade that is left unused or unmaintained will rust, no matter how sharp it once was. Therefore, the strategist embraces daily practice. He understands that discipline must be renewed each morning, that knowledge must be pursued relentlessly, and that the body must be tested continually. Every day is an opportunity to either dull the edge through negligence or refine it further through effort. To live in this way is demanding, but it is also liberating, for one ceases to drift through life as raw material and begins to live as a crafted instrument of purpose. What makes this philosophy deeply persuasive is that it is not merely abstract. Each person can apply it immediately. If wealth tempts you into excess, experiment with voluntary poverty. Live with less for a week and observe how much of what you once called necessity was merely habit. If the body has grown weak, begin to forge it through consistent training. Not grand resolutions, but steady repetitions that hammer strength into muscle and spirit alike. If the mind is restless, set it to study not random distractions, but the wisdom of those who endured before us. Each choice to practice restraint, each decision to train rather than indulge, is a stroke of the hammer that draws you closer to becoming the sharp weapon you are meant to be. Ultimately, the metaphor of forging a sharp weapon captures the essence of Stoic resilience. Life is a battlefield, unpredictable and often merciless. To step into it, unprepared, hoping that fortune will protect you, is folly. To step into it forged, disciplined and sharpened is wisdom. The strategist does not merely survive, he directs the flow of events with clarity and strength. He knows that while he cannot command the winds, he can shape his sail. While he cannot soften the blows of fate, he can harden himself to withstand them. And so, when you hear the call to forge yourself into a sharp weapon, understand it not as rhetoric, but as a path. It is the path of the Stoic warrior who refuses to be a victim of chance. It is the path of the strategist who sees beyond comfort and into destiny. It is the path of the human being who, through discipline, knowledge, endurance, and humility, transforms from raw ore into a blade that shines with unbreakable purpose. The fire is waiting, the hammer is ready, and your life itself is the metal. Step into the furnace willingly, for only through the forging will you emerge as something unshakable, something sharp, something worthy of the battles ahead. 4. Control your emotions as you control your emotions as you control your pieces. Control your pieces. In the stillness of a candle-lit room, Emperor Marcus Aurelius sat in solitude, his empire teetering under the weight of war, betrayal, and plague. The temptation to react with fury, to lash out in fear or indignation, must have surged within him like fire beneath the surface. Yet, instead of succumbing, he wrote in his journal, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." This simple but profound truth is not the voice of an emperor commanding armies, but of a Stoic warrior commanding himself. This command, this radical self-mastery, is at the heart of what it means to control your emotions as you control your pieces. In chess, the master moves each piece with precision, purpose, and patience. No movement is reactive. No decision is driven by panic or pride. Each action is calculated, aligned with a strategy that transcends the temporary state of the board. So too must we govern the battlefield of our lives with a mind that does not flinch under pressure and a heart that refuses to be ruled by the chaos within. It is easy to confuse Stoicism with coldness, or to imagine a ruthless strategist as someone who is devoid of emotion. But emotions are not enemies. Anger, fear, sorrow, they are data. They are signals. What matters is not that you feel them, but whether they command you. A true strategist, like a true Stoic, does not allow emotion to be the general. He lets reason lead and emotion follow in formation. Imagine a situation at work. A colleague publicly undermines you, or a supervisor unfairly questions your competence. The surge of indignation is completely natural. Your blood boils, your mind screams for retaliation. But if you let anger take over, you've already lost ground. You're not fighting back, you're handing over control. In that moment, you're no longer the commander of your inner world. Instead, imagine seeing this situation not as a personal attack, but as a test, a training ground for your composure. This isn't just a conflict. It's a strategic chessboard. The hot-headed player is easily baited into a trap, but the one who stays still inside is the one who controls the board. Stoic philosophy teaches us emotional reactivity is weakness, but the ability to choose your response is true strength. You can't control others, but you can always control yourself if you train for it. This is not suppression. This is a transformation. The Stoic warrior feels the storm but does not steer by it. He recognizes his emotional weather, but chooses to navigate by stars of reason, principle, and long-term vision. And just as the chess player might sacrifice a piece to gain positional advantage later, you may choose to let go of an immediate need to be right, or to strike back in order to win the deeper game of respect, of influence, of inner mastery. But why is this so hard? Why does the flame of anger so easily blind us? Because, like untrained warriors, we have let our emotions grow wild and undisciplined. We have not taught them their place. We do not meditate daily like Marcus Aurelius did, reminding ourselves that nothing external has power over us unless we grant it. We do not pause to consider, is this worth my peace? Am I playing the long game or just reacting to the noise of the moment? The ruthless strategist is not ruthless toward others. He is ruthless toward his own weakness. He shows no mercy to the parts of himself that would sabotage the mission. His ruthlessness is internal, disciplined, and deliberate. He knows that giving into fury in a meeting might feel powerful in the moment, but it forfeits the credibility he spent years building. He understands that allowing fear to dictate decisions will always lead to defensive moves, never bold ones. And so he chooses instead to act like the player who knows the end game and makes every move count. This is the way of the Stoic warrior. He does not pretend the world is kind. He does not expect others to play fair. But he does demand of himself an inner standard, a level of control, of mastery that ensures his freedom. Because to be a slave to emotion is still to be a slave, no matter how justified the feeling. When Marcus Aurelius faced the Germanic tribes on the brutal frontiers of the empire, or navigated the venomous webs of politics within his own court, he did so not with trembling fear nor with impulsive rage. Instead, he met each crisis with a calm, deliberate mind, the same mental clarity he cultivated in the solitude of his meditations. His journal was a battlefield of inner conflict, no less important than the external wars he fought. He embodied a rare balance, the cold precision of a strategist and the quiet depth of a philosopher. In the truest sense, he was both emperor and monk, holding the sword in one hand, the mirror in the other. The sword symbolizes action, responsibility, and the harsh realities of leadership. The mirror reflects self-awareness, humility, and relentless inner inquiry. Together, they form the ideal Stoic warrior, not hardened by cruelty, but sharpened by discipline. This is not just admirable, it is actionable. You too can rebuild yourself in this image. You can lead with resolve, reflect with honesty, and respond, not react to the chaos around you. The Stoic path does not ask you to withdraw from life, but to engage with it fully with ruthless clarity and unwavering calm. Today, your battlefield may be a boardroom, a broken relationship, or the silence of your own doubt. Whatever it is, you have a choice: to let emotion move you like a pawn, or to move with the clarity of a grandmaster. With each moment of awareness, with each breath between stimulus and response, you reclaim a piece of yourself. You become not reactive, but strategic, not ruled by the moment, but ruling it. Rebuilding yourself begins here, not by becoming colder, but by becoming clearer, by learning that true strength is not the absence of emotion, but the command of it. Like a warrior sharpening his blade or a strategist refining his plan. You train not for the sake of battle, but for the sake of peace earned through discipline. So the next time emotion rises like a tide within you, remember, this is your move. The board is yours. The war is not out there, it's within, and you win not by defeating others, but by mastering yourself. Rebuilding yourself is not about conclusion, crafting a softer, easier version of who you are. It's about forging a ruthless, uncompromising mind. One that doesn't waver in the face of pressure, yet stays rooted in the core Stoic virtues: reason, virtue, and resilience. This isn't the path of comfort, it's the path of clarity. It's not about avoiding hardship, but about training your mind to meet it with discipline, not emotion. From now on, see life as a chessboard. Every move you make matters. Abandon self-pity, discipline your body, master your emotions, and always play the long game. That's how you rise, not just as a person, but as a true Stoic warrior. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next chapter on the path of Stoicism. And remember, the battle is within, the war is daily, the warrior is you. Keep watching. Your next video is right here.